Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar, The Activation Rabbit Hole, Avoiding Segmentation Pitfalls in a Big Data World. My name is Alice Little, and I'm on the marketing team here at Simmons Research. I'll be moderating today's session, so let's quickly go over a few logistics before we get started. Given the high volume of attendees on today's call, we've placed everyone in listen-only mode. That said, if you have questions or comments throughout the session, please use the question feature in your GoToWebinar panel. We'll address these at the end of the presentation. As a reminder, all attendees will receive the recording and a copy of today's slides within the next few business days. Now, today's speakers are Callie Lanka, Chief Strategy Officer at Simmons Research, and Steve Denon, SVP, Head of Partnerships at Simmons Research. Now, at this point, I'll hand it over to Callie.
Hello, everybody. Thanks, Allison. Thank you for taking the time to attend our webinar today. We promise this will be interesting, and I think this is a pretty hot topic in the industry right now. And Steve Denon and I created some slides for you to tell you a story around what are some of the challenges marketers, agencies, and media companies are facing within the advanced segmentation and activation space, and how Simmons can partner with you and help you navigate through some of these challenges. Before we go through these slides, for those of you who might not be familiar with Simmons Research, we are the leading source of consumer and cross-channel intelligence. We measure the American consumer psychographics, preferences, attitudes, and media behaviors by closely overlaying survey measurement with passive data collected from meters. We've been in this business for more than 60 years, and we continue to help leading brands, agencies, and media companies effectively navigate through their consumer engagement challenges by providing measurement on over 60,000 elements around media consumption, attitude, psychographics, product affinity, brand consideration, etc. So today, Steve and I are going to walk you through some of the challenges that we have observed as we work through our clients. Particular focus on the big data-driven marketing. We will discuss the scope of these challenges, and then we'll go through a few recommendations on how you all can potentially think of addressing these challenges. We also have some customers who are on the cutting edge of currently implementing some of these recommendations to address the issues they're facing. So we'll provide an overview of what they're trying to do and how we're working with them to address these. So let's take this off. There are obviously several challenges in the big data-driven marketing space. At the same time, and again, I don't want to simplify this world. There are several advantages as well. We've come a long way in the last 2 to 3 years. Big data and activation programmatic environments have been amazing for most of us. This presentation or this webinar is not going to position them in any negative way. We strongly believe that first and third party data sets and big data is crucial for the evolution of this industry. That being said, there are certain challenges that we're all facing today. So we'll try to do whatever we can to address those challenges and help you navigate through those. So the 3 key things we observed as we work with our clients are many of these first and third party data sets, they're not representative. I don't think they claim they're representative either, but we have started noticing some use cases where such data sets are being used based on some assumptions that they're, for some reason, representative of the US population. So we're going to touch on that a bit. And then we're also noticing an increased disconnect between brand messaging and consumer values. Now, this has been a very prominent industry issue, and several CMOs from very big brands and marketers have raised this, so we'll touch on that as well. And the last big challenge that we have noticed is while we have made so many improvements around activation and we have achieved scale, we should not do that at the expense of quality, at the expense of creating a nice and cohesive brand experience for our consumers. So with these three, let's dig a little deeper into what these are and what are some of the core reasons behind these challenges, and then see if we can come up with a couple of theories and recommendations on how to address them. Let's start with basics, right? Correlation doesn't mean causation. I'm sure many of you guys have seen this slide several times. Again, as I mentioned, we are not taking a stance here that first or third-party data is bad, right? It's a treasure trove that should be groomed and continuously explored. But these data sets sometimes carry an intrinsic bias. The bias could either be due to the source of collection or due to the nature of the data itself. They carry certain gaps, right? They're not representative of the US population, and there are certain gaps that come with the data itself. Let's take cookie-driven data sets as an example, right? They typically look at online behaviors. They're collecting tons of transactional data, online behaviors, and comments in some instances. But when you start trying to make it representative, you rely on a lot of lookalike modeling to connect them with other traditional data sets. Cookie data sets are not person-level data. And when you try to connect cookie-level data sets with other device ID or cookie level data sets, you are introducing a lot of bias and problems in these data sets. Now, in their raw format, these data sets are amazing when it comes to campaigns such as, DR, increasing click-through rates, increasing conversions, et cetera. There have been so many advancements in that space. So the optimization models that the ad tech and marketing tech have built to help support such models are amazing. But the problem comes when people start using these first and third-party data sets in their raw format to create predictive models around market expansion, customer retention, et cetera. When you start doing that, you'll end up closing down your pool whenever a Nicolas Cage movie gets released. Again, when you're thinking of driving top-of-the-funnel analysis and creating models to support your top-of-the-funnel brand experience and brand messaging, without proper curation, first and third-party data sets might end up creating some bad decisions due to certain gaps and missing data points within their portfolio. In a push to improve our targeting efforts and in a push to create some advanced targeting techniques within the activation space using big data, marketers are seeing disconnect between brand experiences and customer values. Again, these are quotes from the CMO of P&G, the brand head at P&G at the Clorox company, SVP of Meredith Digital. They're very consistent, right? We have ignored the brand values, the customer values, and we, for some reason, are not connecting those two. And this continues to be a top priority for several CMOs. And at the same time, consumers are also demanding a much closer relationship with their brands, right? So this makes messaging and storytelling absolutely crucial. And the last challenge is activation at scale. Again, and it should not come at the expense of quality, right? If you look at it, some of the other priorities, brand safety, misleading content, fraud, and we have seen shifts from marketer budgets from regular programmatic buys towards high quality inventory and TMP buys, again within the programmatic space, but more towards direct deals. P&G, JP Morgan Chase, they're classic examples of this. Again, there are some issues here that can only be addressed by the media channels and content owners and providers, but there are some data quality and improvements that we can do as brands, agencies, and media companies. So today, we are going to focus on that. So what are our recommendations, right? How can we help you and our partners address these challenges? So let's go through the same issues and let's see if we can find solutions towards those issues. The first thing is, rather than using these first and third-party data sets in their raw format, our recommendation, and we have seen some improvements after we did this with one of our partners, is let's debias existing first and third-party data and enrich them using representative and high-quality data sets. And we'll show you an example on how you can do that. Secondly, let's use high-quality consumer behaviors as the building blocks for your consumer engagement campaigns. Again, it goes back to the values of the customers. It goes back to the psychographic attributes that drive brand consideration and product purchase. Let's focus on those high-quality attributes that have the highest predictability power. And then lastly, once you figure out how to debias and enrich your first-party data, and once you start introducing some high-quality behaviors, now we can start working on activating these enriched high-quality data sets at scale. Scale is important, guys. We're not saying scale is not important, but we need to address the core building blocks before we run after scale. So let's go through a couple of examples of how our existing clients are navigating these. Now, as I mentioned before, these are some of our cutting-edge clients who are either in the process of implementing these or have completed a couple of phases of a 3 to 4 phase exercise. So you will see some results in some of these studies, and some of these studies or some of these projects are still very early. All right, let's start with the first case study. As I mentioned, one of our first recommendations is debiasing and enriching your first-party data. So let's start with that. So we work with a multi-level marketing company that focuses on skincare products. And their primary goal was understanding the most profitable influencers within their network and most promising regional growth opportunities by enriching their first-party data. Now remember, and I'll walk you through what types of first-party data they have at their disposal, but if you remember the discussion we had so far, relying solely on first-party data will not let you create these market expansion and customer retention models. You need to fill any gaps you might have, otherwise you'll end up with some bad decisions. Going back to correlation is not necessarily a causation. So we took a 3-phase solution here. We started segmenting their influencers and customer files into 3 tiers based on the quality. And then we linked their first-party data and enriched it with Simmons data at a local market level. And then we created an enriched profile of how their tier 1 influencer and customer would look like so they can incorporate those findings within their consumer engagement models and also in their market expansion models. So here are the data sets they had at their disposal. On the left-hand side, you see first-party data. It's rich data, right? They had a lot of values, a lot of consumers, but they only had name and address, profitability associated with their consumers, and the purchase frequency associated with their consumers. There are several gaps within their customer profile itself. That's when we brought in Simmons data, which is developed using a high-quality projectable and probabilistic sample. We had 60,000 variables across brand consideration, product consideration, attitudes, psychographics, opinions, etc. And then we combined these 2 data sets together. And the result is phenomenal, right? If you remember from the first-party data sets, you only had a couple of KPIs like profitability and purchase frequency and some PII information. But as we started enriching these tier 1 segments or tier 2 segments using Simmons data, now you're developing a much more comprehensive profile of your top influencers and top customers. It goes beyond pure demos. It looks at their underlying attitudes, their psychographic behaviors, how do they like to shop, what type of digital behaviors do they exhibit, and also at a local market level, which markets are much more influential versus which markets are ripe for expansion. So using these comprehensive enriched data set, we started ranking and creating market expansion models, and we showed them, okay, here are some markets that are very ripe for expansion. Here are some markets where you might have a very good penetration already. So they've already taken these recommendations and models. They are working on expansion using the models. And the good value, even if the expansion takes some time, because there are other factors. Now, let's not ignore price, promotion, and all those other factors that we are not considering here in these models. So there are external factors that the marketers can directly influence. But at a minimum, they have these comprehensive, enriched behaviors that they can use to directly engage with their influencers and customers. Okay. The second case study is about using high-quality data as building blocks. So I want to do a quick refresher on one of our new product lines, Simmons Predictive Consumer Insights, before handing it over to Steve Denon to walk us through the case. The Predictive Consumer Insights, PCI, relies on the power of holistic psychographics. So holistic psychographics is a combination of Simmons psychographics, and we also work with our partner, RMT, and they have a proprietary technology called driver tags, so we incorporate those into our holistic psychographic model. The power of PCI is we ended up with such high predictive data sets that we were in a position to not only predict viewership, but also which brands and prospects of those brands index heavily among various TV shows and viewers within the show. And what are the psychographic attributes that drive brand consideration and purchase? So just to walk you through the methodology, again, high level behind this, we examined over 3,000 or 2,700 brands and programs across 600 Simmons psychographic attributes and about 250 odd RMT driver tags. And we identified variables that have the highest predictability around brand choice. And then we scored all our respondents to show here is the respondent that has the highest likelihood to either watch a show or to consider a brand and purchase the brand. And remember, this is self-reported data, right? We collect brand purchase and TV viewership data on a regular basis on our respondents. So when we overlaid these models on self-reported data, we were able to achieve greater than 250% predictability compared to creating a model using demos alone or indices alone. Just to dig a level deeper, this is not just at a overall brand level or a category level. We were able to show consistent improvements in predictability power on media viewership and brand choice across several categories. So media, obviously a huge improvement in predictability power, primarily driven by the RMT driver tags, but we have seen similar improvements in our predictability power compared to demos only across CPG, alcohol, department clothing stores, across different types of brands. So with that said, let me hand this over to Steve Denon to walk you guys through a couple more examples.
Good afternoon, everybody. Let me echo Kalyan's comments in thanking you for joining us today. We understand this can be an especially busy time of year, so it makes you carving off some time even that much more meaningful to us. So building on the groundwork that Kalyan laid, I did want to dive into our next case study around how a client is using high quality data as the building blocks for some of the more advanced segmentation that they're looking to do. So in this case study, we've been working with a media client, and they're using the high quality data from Simmons to build better intelligence about their audience. And they're doing that as a way to advance tune-in or improve tune-in for their shows. The goals around doing this, they want to be able to adjust their programming and marketing strategy to increase and maximize the viewership basically to grow their audience, and they also want to do that while keeping their current audience. On top of that, they want to be able to show that they are attracting the audience that certain brands care about. So in terms of what we're able to deliver for them, as Kalyan talked about with predictive consumer insights, so for their shows, we're going to be able to show them the psychographics that are the most positive and negative drivers for show viewership. We're able to describe for them the preferences of those viewers with those high propensity, amongst those that are the highest propensity to watch the show. And we also deliver for them, and I'll show an example of this, a brand index report, which illustrates for that either network or at a TV show level, the brands that have the highest degree of overlap with the brand choice drivers for that show. So looking for those high indexing brands relative to a specific media entity. So if we go to the next slide, we'll show an example of what this key predictive consumer insights deliverable looks like. So this chart illustrates for this client, what are the top positive and top 10 negative influences on the brand choice. So brands can use these data to influence their choices about how to talk to their target. And on the flip side, media can use insights like this to figure out the right brands to advertise with them. So as a media company, you're going to look for brands that have high alignment with the key psychographics for your media property. So looking for those degrees of synergy between a brand and media in terms of the most powerful predictors of brand choice. We go to the next slide, we now have an example of the brand index report that we're able to deliver for clients. So this is a bit of an eye chart, but the way to read this is that you have your brands on your rows and your media, or so in this case, media would be a TV show or a network on your columns. And this is going to show which are the brands that are most closely aligned with the brand choice drivers for any show. So if you think about it from a media sales, if I'm with a media organization, I'm in ad sales, I can think about this as my top prospects list from a partnership and advertising perspective. So we're looking again for that alignment between those brand choice drivers, between the media and the brands that could be potential partners with that media organization. Okay, we can move to the next slide. So our third case study aligns with our third key challenge, which is the ability to activate high quality data at scale. And we're working with 3 different organizations in similar ways and with similar goals. So in one case, we're working with a top music service that wants to create and activate customer lifestyle segments. We're working with another top agency who wants to use a quarterly custom survey that they run with Simmons, be able to use that in their DMP for advanced analytics and activation. And in the third scenario, we're working with an agency who wants to use standard and custom segments to build advanced segments for TV, planning linear TV campaigns. So we'll talk a little bit now about both of these. We have partnerships in place with Acxiom and Experian that will allow clients to be able to get data that or segments that they've built off of Simmons data available for advanced analytics and targeting purposes across multiple channels. And we'll talk a little bit about our partnership with comScore, where clients can leverage their advanced segments for planning around linear TV buys. So we're working with Acxiom and Experian today to get the richness of Simmons data to the scale and the high quality that our clients need and demand when trying to reach their audiences. We have some very advanced modeling techniques that we do that. The results of the work that we're doing with these partners is that we're able to get these high quality segments that you build off of Simmons data. It could be standard Simmons segments. It could be standard Simmons data along with any custom surveys you do with Simmons. And we're able to get those segments at scale. The scale we're talking about when we're talking with partners like Axiom Experian is able to deliver scale that has the ability to reach 90+% of US households. And given the wide distribution networks of those partners, we're able to get segments pushed into really the platform of your choice. Their networks are very extensive. So, we're pretty confident saying if there's a distribution point that you want to get your segments into, we should be able to enable that and facilitate that through these partner relationships. Going to the next slide. So we did want to talk a little bit about our relationship with comScore. We've had a standing relationship with them over the last few years with their TV Essentials platform, which is the national TV measurement service that integrates return path device data from all operator types. So they're reporting on TV viewership across cable providers, satellite, telco. They're able to report on over 250 networks in all 210 markets. Their coverage is at about 22 million households and 40 million TVs. The fusion that is done with comScore, it's done by comScore, much like a standard media fusion would be done. They're looking for common data elements, aligning the data sets in terms of commonalities. They normalize the data to make sure when certain variables are being used that they're being aligned in the right way. And then they create those linkages to find those TV households that most closely align or best align with the comparable record within the Simmons database. So this fusion really brings to the market really the benefits of our respective services, the richness of the audience definition and audience profiling that you can get from the Simmons NHCS around demographics, attitudes, product usage, along with the comprehensiveness of the comScore TV data collection, which, as I've said, is very broad in terms of the number of networks they report and the number of markets they're reported in, but also their reporting frequency. Next slide. So just to give an example of how clients are and can use this data, the clients start by defining their segment in the Simmons platform. So again, you have every one of those 60,000 attributes at your disposal to create that advanced segment. In this example, it's going to be female fashion target. So you can define it based on a couple standard demographics around female and age. You can do advanced Boolean logic that would allow you to define a segment based on having an agreement with any combination of 7 of 12 statements. So once that segment is created, you can then have that segment available within the TV Essentials platform to evaluate that segment across the TV ratings data that comScore makes available at a national level. So if we go to the next slide, the data that you would then get represented in the Simmons platform, in the comScore platform, would be an index of that segment to the overall population across all the various media properties, i.e. TV shows and networks that are reported within TV Essentials. So if you as a brand or an agency, if this is your target, this from a linear TV playing perspective gives you good visibility into the types of TV programs that you should be approaching and thinking about as you're putting that media plan together in order to reach that selected target audience. Next slide. So before I pass it back to Kalyan for the conclusions, just wanted to give everybody a sense of the types of standard segmentations that we have built into the platform in addition to all the discrete data elements. We have standard segmentation solutions built out around automotive, retail, food and lifestyle, mobile, just to mention a few. Some of these we have sections of built out in terms of our partner integrations for targeting, and that's a list we can and will be adding to over time as client demand dictates. So these are essentially higher level segmentation schemes that Simmons has built on top of our data to give our clients more ready and actionable segments to go after. And in terms of the psychographics, we've hit on psychographics in a couple different sections of the presentation. We have psychographics really across the full range of everything that we tell about the American consumer. Our psychographics are not limited to shopping behavior or personal finance. You think about the Simmons survey being very comprehensive in terms of all the different aspects of the consumer we can report on. We do have psychographic batteries of psychographic questions available throughout the booklet, and being able to provide that deep visibility into the consumer mindset across a number of different dimensions of the consumer. So with that, let me turn it back to Kalyan for our final summary, and then we'll get into Q&A.
Thank you, Steve. Those were, again, really interesting case studies for us too, because remember, these are not products we're selling in the marketplace. These are customers and partners who came to us with a specific problem, and we worked together with them to find a solution for the problem. And as we were navigating through those, we started identifying some themes that we thought would be beneficial for us to share with our customers and partners here via the webinar. So just to summarize, the three key challenges that we noted in the marketplace and our recommendations for how to address some of those challenges are: keep in mind that many of the first and third party data sets are not representative. Again, they're high quality, they're good when it comes to campaigns such as DR, when it comes to specific use cases. But as you're trying to get into predictive analytics, as you're trying to create some advanced modeling, note that there might be some gaps that you want to calibrate and debias and enrich using representative data sets. And we are noticing an increased disconnect between messaging and consumer values, and marketers and brands and agencies have a heavy focus on this particular initiative. And if you start thinking of connecting consumer with your brand and creating compelling experiences, you need to stop thinking of high quality data sets such as psychographics and attitudes and opinions, emotions that have a high predictability towards brand consideration compared to other transactional or demographic type data sets. And how do we address the problem of activating at scale without compromising on quality? Again, once you figure out a way to debias and enrich your first party data, and once you focus on bringing in some high quality predictive data sets into the fold, you can now enrich, you can now activate such data sets at scale using your traditional channels that you are currently relying on. So that said, let me open this up for questions. Steve and I are more than happy to answer any questions you might have.
Absolutely. And once again, guys, if you have any questions you'd like to ask, feel free to enter them in the question feature in your GoToWebinar panel at this time. We have had a few come in while we've been presenting, so let's start there. First question, do you have integrations into addressable TV partners?
Yeah, I'll take that one. We've had some discussions over the last couple of months around opportunities that involve audience targeting within addressable TV. So we have that capability based on existing partners. The specific platforms we're able to integrate into would be dependent on the distribution network of the partners we're working with, but we know that the partners we work with have existing integrations with many of the leading addressable TV platforms.
All right, next question. What if I don't have access to first-party data?
Sure. Yeah, I can take that. It's an interesting question, right? We talk about explosion of data, but I totally understand and see and work with several clients of ours who come to us and say, hey, I don't directly have access to first-party data. Is there a way I can build my own repository? There are a couple of options we recommend to such partners, right? There are ways where you can create partnerships with your brands if you're an agency, or other partner brands if you're working on some promotions, etc., and create a nice repository of what's traditionally called second-party data. Or you can also work with partners like Simmons to create custom studies or custom surveys that are very specific to you, your brand, or your clients, your partners, and maintain a repository that way on an ongoing basis.
Awesome. All right, next question. Is Simmons involved in partnerships similar to OpenAP?
I'll take that one. Yeah, so for those who aren't familiar, OpenAP is the TV planning system consortium being led by Fox Turner Viacom. One of the key pillars of that, in addition to some others like transparency and consistency, is this idea of being able to plan against more advanced audiences beyond just standard demographics. So that is still very much an early stage rollout. Via our relationship with comScore, we are able to support on a custom basis the ability to access segments within OpenAP. So it's not a situation where you're going to go into the OpenAP platform and see Simmons segments listed, but we can work with comScore to get custom segments pushed into the platform for the time being, and we are actively working to get some standard Simmons segments available listed within OpenAP.
Perfect. Okay, next question. Does Simmons have any standard segments available, as in off the shelf, within DSPs?
Yeah, so I'll just talk briefly about our Acxiom relationship. So we anticipate a lot of what we'll be doing through them will be on a custom basis. Either clients got some first-party data they want to use, or it could be based on a custom study they've done with Simmons. But we do have about 150 standard segments that we've produced with Acxiom, and those can be turned on within any of the various endpoints that a client may want to use to access that list of standard segments. The initial enablement and turn on has to be requested, and once they're there, they're going to be there. So if there are specific DSPs that a client wants to get these standard segments available into, we can work through our partners to make that happen.
Awesome. All right, we don't have enough time for any more questions. So at this point, I'd like to thank Callie and Steve, our speakers today. You guys did a great job, and all of our attendees for joining today's session. The Any unanswered questions will be addressed offline. As a reminder, we will be emailing a copy of today's presentation within the next few business days, so keep a lookout for an email from us. Thank you and have a great day.